like to welcome you all back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in this video where we cover Crimes and Links to Freemasons Part 2. If you haven't already, be sure to watch Crimes and Freemason Part 1. I will leave the link in the comment section below. In this video we have an introduction of each individual's background, a reaction to their crime and the link to Freemasons. In the world of secret societies, the Freemasons have long been a subject of intrigue and speculation. Dating back centuries, this secretive fraternity has been the topic of many conspiracy theories and myths. One such theory suggests a connection between crimes and the Freemasons. Although there is no concrete evidence to support these claims, there are too many repetitive events to be classed as a coincidence. The sheer mystique surrounding the Freemasons has fueled speculations and captured the imaginations of many. To understand the origins of the connections between crimes and Freemasons, we have to look at many famous cases or crimes by those with ties to Freemasonry. The history of this ancient fraternity runs deep into politics, MPs, prime ministers, film stars, news presenters, soap and pop stars. Freemasonry is believed to have had its roots in the stonemason guilds of the Middle Ages. Join me in this video as we look at the Jill Dando case, Katie Price, Jimmy Savile, Simon Cowell, Anton Deck, and Logan Paul.
In the world of true crime, there are some cases that capture the public's attention and leave a lasting impact. One such case is the murder of Jill Dando, a beloved British television presenter. The shocking nature of her death and the subsequent investigation would reverberate throughout the United Kingdom and beyond, leaving many wondering who could commit such a heinous crime and why. Jill Dando was a well-known and respected figure in the world of British television. She had a warm and charismatic on-screen presence that endeared her to viewers across the nation. As the presenter of popular shows such as Crime Watch and Holiday, she became a household name, admired for her professionalism and dedication to her work. Tragically, on April 26, 1999, Jill Dando's life was brutally cut short when she was shot dead outside her home in Fulham, London. The news of her murder sent shockwaves throughout the United Kingdom and the media landscape. The well-known and well-loved presenter had been taken away from her family, friends, and adoring fans in a senseless act of violence. The investigation into Jill Dando's murder was swift but challenging. The police meticulously combed through the evidence and interviewed countless individuals in their quest for justice. Speculation and theories ran rampant, but it would take some time for the truth to come to light. Ultimately, the investigation zeroed in on a man named Barry George, a loner with a history of mental health issues. George had lived in the vicinity of Dando's home at the time of the murder and had a fascination with celebrities. Although the evidence against him was circumstantial, he was convicted of Dando's murder in 2001. However, the case did not end there. Barry George maintained his innocence.
Despite Barry George's conviction in July 2001, his conviction was later quashed in 2008 and released after new evidence came to light. The mystery surrounding Jill Dando's murder remained unsolved. Years passed and the case went cold. The public's interest diminished, but the memory of the beloved presenter lived on in the hearts of those who admired her. Speculation and theories continued to circulate, but the truth remained elusive. To this day, the murder of Jill Dando remains a haunting and unsolved mystery, a tragic event that forever changed the lives of those who knew and loved her most. Her memory is preserved through the countless hours of TV footage and the stories of her warmth and kindness. While her killer has never been brought to justice, Jill Dando's legacy endures as a reminder of the fragility of life and enduring impact of a beloved television presenter who was taken from us too soon. Another key factor and figure that wasn't explored in this case, or publicised, was the long-time best friend of Jill Dando, Cliff Richard, another person surrounded in mystery and speculation when it came with regards to the operation of U-Tree. Jill Dando hosted Crime Watch with fellow host Nick Ross, who was later on knighted as a CBE. I will go into further details about Nick Ross later in the video and his involvement with fellow Freemasons and his choices regarding reporting crimes, child protection and charity. On the day of Jill Dando's assassination, she had been out shopping rather than her usual routine of returning straight home from the TV studio after filming. Jill is believed to have had her very last phone call with no other than Cliff Richard. This is due to arrangements that they were going to meet up later on in the day. Jill had raised her concerns over certain TV presenters exploiting their power to have access to children or minors. This normally would have been at Wood Lane BBC TV recording studios. One person Jill had raised concerns against was Jimmy Savile, along with her longtime best friend Cliff Richard. This was around the same time the stories regarding the Elm Tree Guest House were exposed, a place where the rich and famous would go under a pseudonym to then indulge with rent boys and those that are underage and minors. This is where those in the entertainment industry who are homosexual and had a fascination about children could go confidentially and act out their desires. Lord Britton and Lord Boothby were some of those who got exposed going to the Elm Tree Guest House. These two lords were not only friends with musicians and singers such as Cliff Richard, but they were also entangled in the criminal underworld and friends with the likes of the Krays. These also included people such as Winston Churchill. Taking into consideration Jill Dando's movements on the day of her assassination and the fact of who the last phone call was made to, means that the only whereabouts in real time of Jill Dando's location on that day would have been Cliff Richard.
Dando's an example of someone that was getting near the truth, I think.
Yeah, I think she made a comment about Cliff Richard as well. And my memory serves me well. I think she made a comment saying he's not the Christian man everyone thinks he is.
That's not enough to get a bullet in the head, though, is it? Do you think?
It depends on how right she was. You know, and how. I mean, bear in mind. I mean, you look, Cliff Richard links to the Kray twins.
Did he?
Yeah. I've heard things about that guy, and again, I can't share it because he sued in the past, and he may well sue again. And
Yeah.
considering the coverage you're getting now, I don't think that would be
Yeah.
the poignant thing to say.
Yeah.
His real name is Harry Webb. Maybe, in the archives of crime, there might be a Harry Webb with the same date of birth as him that might have conviction.
Cliff Richard's ties to Freemasons and crime go back to the early days of the 1960s, when one day two young budding male singers attended the home of the Krays to perform, amongst other activities, taking into consideration Ronnie Kray's fascination with young boys. Cliff Richard also owned a house in the Algarve in Portugal. This was not very far from where the case of Madeleine McCann disappeared. One evening, the two young men, one was a singer, were invited to attend the Krays' home. Cliff Richard is believed to have been the other one, and the other person being Bernard Oliver, who was found 11 days after missing. He was a young gay male with learning difficulties and was found in two separate suitcases after being dismembered into body parts and his head. Cliff Richard later went on to be famous and good friends with the Krays. Jill Dando had already complained to BBC bosses and expressed her concerns that certain TV presenters were exploiting and abusing children on and off the set, but this fell on deaf ears and the Metropolitan Police were told to leave it alone. Considering the amount of Jewish Freemasons and their obsession with young boys or children, it is a regular theme amongst these people stretching all the way to Epstein's Island.
Katie Price, a well-known British television personality and model, had long been in the spotlight for various aspects of her life, including her run-ins with the law. Her car-related offences became a frequent topic of discussion in the media and amongst her fans. It all began when Katie first made headlines for her driving escapades. She was notorious for her need for speed and her love of flashy sports cars. Her journey down the path of car-related offences started with a series of speeding tickets. Her lead foot often got her into trouble as she pushed the limits of her high-performance vehicles on the open roads of the United Kingdom. Despite her initial traffic violations, Katie seemed unfazed by the consequences, often sharing her fast-paced lifestyle on social media. Her posts showcased her driving expensive cars and living life in the fast lane, further fueling her image as a celebrity who lived by her own rules.
As her fame continued to grow, so did the scrutiny surrounding her driving habits and convictions. In 2019, she was banned from driving for just 3 months after being convicted of being drunk in charge of her pink Range Rover. If this was you or anybody else, you would have felt the full force of the law by being banned instantly for 12 months. But as Katie was a prolific offender, she would have faced a prison sentence of between 3 to 6 months imprisonment to begin with, and any further drink drive or motoring offences would have been met with at least a 1 to 2 year prison sentence. As to date, Katie has faced none. These incidents also brought her even more notoriety as the media pounced on the story of the drunk driving model. Katie's car offences didn't stop there. In 2020, she was involved in a car crash while driving her £75,000 pink Range Rover. The accident made the headlines and led to speculation about her driving skills, her competence, and her love for attention-grabbing vehicles. Over the years, Katie Price's car-related offences, arrests and court appearances have become something of symbolic of her turbulent personal life and her love for living on the edge. Her run-ins with the law served as a stark reminder of the price of fame and the responsibilities that come with it as she continued to be in the public eye, both for her career and her headline-grabbing attention. Despite her legal troubles, Katie Price remained a polarised figure in the world of celebrity for her escapes of prison sentences countless times. Her fans admired her for her unapologetic approach to life, while her critics chastised her for her reckless behaviour. The narrative of Katie Price's car offences was just one chapter in her colourful and controversial life, illustrating the complex relationship between fame, fortune and personal choices in the modern age of celebrity culture.
Reckon you go down? Why do you suck my
Katie has expressed her relationships with her Jewish friends, but insists, like so many of her Freemasons, that she herself is not Jewish, just like the British talk show host in America and famous for the British TV series Gavin and Stacey, James Corden. Yes, James Corden is Jewish as well. Yet if we take a look at Katie's mother, and you understand that the Jewish religion is not one that anyone can adapt to or be converted to, but is hereditary and passed down from the mother's side, you can then grasp how this complex Freemason entrance or acceptance is operated. From her marriage to fellow Freemason Peter Andre, a pop star of Greek-Jewish descent. Hence why, without being prejudiced or stereotypical, a lot of Jewish Freemasons have plastic surgery and nose reconstruction, of which Peter Andre and Katie Price have both had. Jewish people are only allowed to marry other fellow Jews and no other faith. This is why a lot of MPs, Prime Ministers, Presidents and celebrities will tell you that their wife or husband are Jewish, but reveal no more. Hence why Hollywood film and TV stars all marry each other. This ensures that the wealth stays within the Jewish communities, and a tactic to ensure those who are not part of their group stay in poverty.
In the glittering world of reality television and talent competitions, Simon Cowell had always been the larger-than-life figurehead. He was the man with the Midas touch, the one who could spot talent a mile away, or so it seemed. For years, he had reigned supreme as the formidable judge and creator of the global sensation, The X Factor. But in the winter of 2022, the world watched in shock as this empire of music and dreams crumbled amid a shocking scandal. The X Factor had always been celebrated for its ability to turn ordinary people into music superstars. And Simon Cowell was its unapologetic and often acerbic face. He had been both revered and reviled for his brutally honest critiques, and his knack for discovering genuine musical gems hidden among the masses. But as the years went by, something began to change in the show's DNA, something sinister that would ultimately taint its legacy. The scandal began with a series of leaks from former contestants, insiders and production staff, shedding light on the dark underbelly of the show. The X Factor was supposed to be a platform for raw talent, but it turned out that behind the scenes, the show had devolved into a web of deceit and manipulation. The contestants' stories were rewritten, their backgrounds embellished, and the true purpose of the show began to shift from talent discovery to entertainment at any cost.
As the revelations mounted, the public's perception of Simon Cowell and the X Factor began to crumble. It turned out that many of the contestants were from a Jewish background and already successfully auditioned previously. The alleged scandal included fake sob stories, rigged votes, and secret contracts that bound contestants to unfair deals. The X Factor had become more about the drama and the spectacle than the music itself. With each new revelation, the media frenzy intensified, and Simon Cowell, the man who had once been the king of reality television, found himself at the centre of a storm. Accusations of exploitation and manipulation flew, and the show's credibility was hanging by a thread. For a man who had built an empire on the promise of discovering true talent, this scandal was a catastrophe and a far fall from grace. Simon Cowell at first remained defiant, but the mounting evidence was undeniable. As the scandal deepened, he had no choice but to address it publicly. He apologised in a press conference. He admitted to some of the wrongdoings and vowed to make amends. The damage, however, was done, and the tarnish on his once golden reputation and the X Factor was irreparable. The X Factor scandal will forever be remembered as a dark chapter in the history of reality television that involved the phone-in scandal that saw many viewers charged for their votes, yet they weren't registered and counted. Vote lines still remained open and charged viewers long after the show had ended. This was a regular theme, and due to these charged votes saw Simon Cowell net on an average £300,000 per show. This would have been a lot less had the vote lines closed after the voting result. As a result, Simon Cowell distanced himself from the show and the X Factor brand, never to be mentioned again. But for what consequences did Simon Cowell face for such acts of deceit against the public, which would amount to theft, fraud, and obtaining money by deception? None whatsoever, and was allowed to continue this pattern of behaviour to then start Britain's Got Talent and the American show America's Got Talent, until that ceased to produce any more shows. Simon Cowell's dad was believed to be a Freemason, and as such Simon followed in his footsteps. From Simon Cowell's picture of him on his own jet ski, you can clearly see the Masonic square and triangle on the front and sides of his jet ski. This would also explain why Simon has been exempt from prosecution and protected from any unwanted stories being published by ex-PR mogul and fellow Jewish Freemason Max Clifford, the editor of several newspapers, and later was convicted for sexual crimes against minors before his death.
Ant McPartlin, a well-known television personality in the United Kingdom, had always been in the spotlight for his charm, wit and talent. However, in recent years, his life took a dramatic turn when he found himself facing a series of legal convictions that would not only challenge his career, but also force him to confront his personal demons. It all began in March 2018, when Ant was involved in a car accident in London. He had been driving under the influence of alcohol and crashed into another vehicle. Fortunately, no one was seriously injured, but the incident made headlines across the country. The public was shocked to learn that one half of the popular duo Ant and Dec had been arrested for drunk driving. Ant McPartlin, who had always been known for his clean-cut image, immediately took responsibility for his actions. He publicly acknowledged his struggle with alcohol addiction and announced that he would be seeking treatment for his issues. This moment marked a turning point in his life, as he admitted he had let down his family, friends and fans. Following his arrest, Ant McPartlin pled guilty to drunk driving in court and received a fine, a driving ban and mandatory rehabilitation. He took a step back from his television career to focus on his recovery, and Dec, his longtime presenting partner, offered him unwavering support. During his time in rehab, Ant worked on his personal issues and addiction. Undergoing a process of self-discovery and healing, he received counselling, attended support group meetings and made amends with those he had hurt along the way. The public was quick to recognise his sincerity and the progress he was making. Over time, Ant successfully completed his rehabilitation and was determined to make a comeback to television. He returned to co-host Britain's Got Talent in 2019, and the audience welcomed him with open arms. His story of redemption resonated with many, and he became an inspiration to those facing their own battles with addiction.
Although the media reported no one was injured, it was exposed that actually a 3-year-old little girl and a 9-year-old boy were injured and taken to hospital as a result of Ant's careless and reckless driving. The 9-year-old boy was quoted by his mother as saying, "I think I'm dying." The media also missed out that, like Katie Price, Ant was not only drunk but high on coke. Ant faced the consequences of his driving and was only ordered to pay a fine and banned. A fine of £86,000 to most people would sound ridiculous, but with a net worth of around 60 million, this is a mere drop in the ocean. There was 2 people, though, that Ant was concerned about when it came to the crash. That was his mother, who was in the car with him, and also himself, regarding what would happen to him and his career being over. It's these vile antics and behaviour from these sorts of people and members of the Freemasons who escape any sort of justice or court proceedings that make my blood boil. I'd like to call these people certain names, but due to YouTube's rules and regulations, I have a funny feeling I'd be banned. After only being withdrawn from TV and his TV shows with Deck for a mere 4 months till 2019, Ant finally returned to our screens. He was allowed to continue and carry on with his job and his life as normal. It's just unfortunate I don't think the same could be said for the 2 children as a result of his car crash. You might be wondering to yourself how Ant and Deck tie into Freemasonry and being Freemasons. Yet when you look at who their boss is and who they're employed by, which is Simon Cowell, who's a well-known Freemason and already been described and shown to be a Freemason, you can understand the ties. Not only that, but Ant and Deck attended a drama school called Sylvia Young's Drama School, which is a school run by Sylvia Young, who is a Jewish lady for Jewish children. This is why you will find on TV and on your soaps and series that you will find actors swap different places and different roles on different shows, yet they're all the same actors. This is what happens to keep the wealth and the actors in current positions in TV and society until the up-and-coming new generation from these drama schools come into the TV spotlight and take over from them and continue the cycle.
In the heart of London, there lived a man named Jimmy Savile. For decades, he had been a beloved figure in the United Kingdom. With his trademark cigars and eccentric fashion sense, Savile was a fixture on British television and radio. He was a legendary DJ, a tireless charity worker, and a seemingly unstoppable force of nature. But beneath this charismatic exterior lay a dark secret that would rock the nation to its core. Rumours and whispers had circulated about Savile for years. Some people claimed that he was more than just a quirky celebrity, that there was something sinister lurking beneath the surface. But these rumours were brushed aside, dismissed as the idle chatter of the envious and the cynical. It was a sunny morning in October 2012 when the truth finally emerged. An ITV documentary titled Exposure: The Other Side of Jimmy Savile aired, revealing a horrifying reality. Dozens of victims came forward, sharing their stories of sexual abuse and exploitation at the hands of Savile. The nation was in shock, unable to reconcile the image of the beloved entertainer with the monstrous predator he had been. As the days passed, the scale of Savile's crimes became increasingly clear. He had used his fame and power to manipulate and abuse vulnerable individuals, often targeting children and young people. The revelation sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry, the BBC, and the charitable organisations he had been associated with.
The fallout from Savile's scandal was swift and far-reaching. His reputation was in tatters, his name synonymous with evil. His charitable foundations disbanded and his honours revoked. People demanded answers from the institutions that had allowed his abuse to go unchecked for so long. The BBC faced heavy criticism for failing to uncover the truth during Savile's lifetime. In the wake of the scandal, investigations were launched to uncover the full extent of Savile's crimes. Many of his victims found the courage to speak out and seek justice, despite the years that had passed. Some perpetrators and enablers faced legal consequences though Savile himself had died in 2011, never having faced justice for his crimes for one day of his living life. But why? It is well documented Savile's crimes and what they involved, but his ties to the Malta Brotherhood, which is part of the Freemason fraternity, have been covered up and buried with his name until now. Jimmy Savile was well known for his demonic and peculiar behaviour, but few knew of the reasons for his protection and his rituals. From having the keys to the local morgue and being known to sleep there, from a ring being made from a glass eye, Jimmy Savile was tied to many that have already been mentioned in previous videos, such as Prime Ministers, MPs, royal family, and celebrities, including criminal ones such as Peter Sutcliffe. 2 bodies were found of 2 young women near Jimmy Savile's flat in the mid-70s as a result of Peter Sutcliffe, the Yorkshire Ripper. At one point, the police had a cast made of Jimmy Savile's teeth to see if it matched bite marks on one of Sutcliffe's victims, but this came of nothing. Many criminologists have said that this was a way of Peter Sutcliffe sacrificing the 2 women as a way of worship or homage to Jimmy Savile. Police at one point thought that the Yorkshire Ripper could have even been Savile after a potential victim put forward his name. It is believed Jimmy Savile learnt witchcraft and black magic that his mother had practiced and passed down to him. His survival of 2 life-threatening illnesses at birth meant Jimmy Savile would ideally have not survived, but in a miraculous event he survived both. Some said that this was part of a pact and a deal with the devil his mother had made. On her passing, Jimmy Savile had her body placed in an open coffin, and it remained in Savile's family home for months after her death. Apart from Jimmy Savile's protection from prosecution until death, even then Jimmy Savile's funeral arrangements were disturbing and satanic. He wanted his coffin facing the sea and tilted at a 45-degree angle. Many would not associate this with Freemasonry, as many people are more familiar with the famous 33 degrees. The reason the 45-degree angle is so important in Freemasonry is that it is believed that the planet Saturn sits at an angle of 45 degrees, and also the rings that circulate Saturn were also positioned at a 45-degree angle. These can be shown in numerous logos you can see around the world and that you see on a daily basis, from even the Internet E logo to the Nike swish. These all represent the 45-degree angle and the rings of Saturn. Saturn was the worshipped sun and planet of Freemasonry and demonic devil worshipping. Going back to Nick Ross is a well-known UK TV presenter. He had ties to Jimmy Savile, Jill Dando, Cliff Richard and Esther Ransom. But it was more than just coincidental and runs a lot deeper than just being employed by the BBC. Nick Ross used to present with ex-presenter Jill Dando a programme called Crime Watch back in the 1990s, a programme that reported crimes, made appeals and passed leads to the police. Nick Ross also started a charity and a business with fellow BBC presenter Esther Ransom in the name of protecting children and a counselling service for children that were vulnerable or had been abused. In another sense, a kind of crime watch, but also other confidential services for children in the name of protection. This charity was called Childline. What is not common knowledge is that this charity was actually set up as part of the Freemason Malta Brotherhood. As its code of conduct, it states in the oath that your fellow Masons' crimes are to be covered and protected at all costs. Even if this means committing perjury and perverting the course of justice, which is illegal, you are still upholding the oath and allegiance that you made to the Freemason Brotherhood. Therefore, you will be protected from prosecution, as the powers of the high-ranking Freemasons are more powerful than the law and the courts. The laws are made by the Freemasons to apply to you, not to them. Calls and reports taken by Childline of crimes committed by Jimmy Savile were filtered out and not acted on. Then you have the comment made by Nick Ross himself, where he admitted he would consider watching child sexual abuse. This is how deep and intertwined the Freemasons go, and a web of members within television. fallout from the crypto zoo scam was devastating. Angry and disillusioned investors took to social media to share their stories, while others tried to file lawsuits against Logan Paul and his team, seeking to recover their losses. Regulators launched investigations which fizzled out, and no criminal charges were brought against those responsible for the fraudulent cryptocurrency. Logan Paul, who was once the beloved figure, became a financial parasite in the eyes of many, whose selfishness and lack of accountability had now made him a hated figure. This is not the only one of Logan Paul's scams involving crypto. He then went on to launch another crypto coin named Ding Dong. He then ran a similar scam that saw millions of people invest their money, only to see no returns, and Logan Paul distanced himself yet again, while keeping the profits for himself. Logan Paul is one half of the brothers of the Paul brothers, with Jake being the other, who's a professional boxer. They originally rose to fame in their early years as members of the Disney Channel, a television network that has contributed to many other Jewish Freemasons in the pop industry, such as Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, and Christina Aguilera. Their commitment and oath still runs today. Logan Paul has managed to date to amass a fortune of a net worth of over $200 million. He still runs scams and things like this today, yet fails to be arrested, charged or prosecuted for any sort of crimes, where others would face the penalty of fraud and theft. Thank you if you made it to the end of the video and this far, and thank you for watching. Please make sure to like the video and subscribe for future content, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.